We usually approach ancient scripture as a static record, a museum archive of long-dead people. But the Quran presents itself as a live execution code. It is a diagnostic tool actively assessing the person reading it in real time. This live system issues a specific threat to the modern reader. Verse 241 carries a direct warning: do not be the first disbeliever in it. Refusing these signs is a conscious transaction. You are choosing to trade a profound underlying truth for the temporary comfort of a worldly illusion. This rejection inaugurates a new field of denial within your own record. Rather than joining a historical list of skeptics, you become the inaugural node, the architect of your own timeline's disbelief. Without the book's direction, the soul enters a state of aimless wandering. Verse 1572 describes this as a deep intoxication, where the traveler loses all sense of coordinate. Left to its own devices, this wandering becomes a terminal loop. Verse 8713 identifies this condition as being suspended in an unresolved existence, neither fully alive nor fully dead. Deprived of a true signal, the ego attempts to stabilize itself by accumulating false monuments. It builds rigid identities out of mundane wealth and social status. This is a fatal cycle of entropy. Breaking it requires a deliberate external mechanism, a way to physically override the ego's default upbringing. Escaping the loop requires more than passive faith. It requires the active execution of a command. That command arrives in verse 1912. O Yahya, take the book with strength. Strength, or kuwa, means structural integrity, interlocking every verse and concept into an unbroken system. This unified grip changes how you process chaos. It redistributes the pressure of reality across the entire mesh, shielding the individual ego from the full force of the impact. Holding the book this way installs a protective armor designed to shield the reader from forces that a rigid, unshielded self cannot sustain. Direct exposure to divine reality requires a complete transition of state. A rigid ego, built on self-certainty, shatters when it encounters the source. The prototype for this encounter is Musa at the mountain. In verse 714, he asks to see God directly. The mountain represents the most rigid, heavy structure imaginable, the ultimate symbol of self-assertion. But when the mountain is struck by the divine emission, it is pulverized and crumbled into dust. Musa falls unconscious. Upon waking, his first words establish a new coordinate. I am the first of the believers. This is the second first of the architecture. True belief is born at the 0 point, where self-constructed certainty is replaced by total reception. It is an identity forged through the collapse and rebuilding of the self.
Once the ego collapses and the structural armor is installed, the soul reaches its optimized state. Verses 6, 162, and 163 define this final alignment. Here we find the third first, being the first of the Muslims, those who surrender. This is a state of perfect coherence, where prayer, life, and death all point towards the same source. Verse 9:111 frames this as a transaction. You trade your finite earthly attachments back to the divine, and in return, verse 21:105 confirms the reward. The righteous servants inherit true authority over the earth. Surrender is the ultimate victory. It aligns the reader with the underlying mechanics of the universe, turning a scattered life into a directed traversal. This grueling traversal does not lead to a strange, newly discovered location. It leads to a destination the soul already recognizes. The journey relies on mutual resonance. Verse 2:152 explains that as you remember the divine remembers you. Verse 38:46 reveals the emotional core of the entire system. The ultimate purification of the soul is achieved through the remembrance of the home. This spiritual homecoming has a physical anchor on earth, the ancient house to which humanity is called to return. This is the Quran executed with strength, a living map back to the home you only thought you had forgotten.